Have you ever wondered why some people seem to sense your kindness and immediately see it as an invitation to take advantage of you? It's as if the softer you are, the sharper their claws become. You try to help, to understand, to see the good in them, yet they push, prod, and twist until you feel small. This is the cruel paradox of dealing with toxic people. They're not looking for your compassion, they're searching for your breaking point. And if you don't learn how to shift the balance of power, they will find it. The truth is, toxic people are not drawn to weakness in the way you might think. They're drawn to uncertainty. They thrive in the gray space where your boundaries blur, where you hesitate before saying no, where you let things slide just this once. They are masters at detecting hesitation, and every second you waver is another second they tighten their grip. But here's the shift that changes everything. They can't control what they can't predict, and they can't manipulate what refuses to play their game. This isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's not about fighting fire with fire. It's about creating a presence that makes them think twice before crossing you. A quiet, unshakable strength that commands respect without raising your voice. Fear, in this sense, is not about intimidation. It's about making them realize deep down that you are not someone they can push, prod, or pull into their chaos. It's about building a wall so high they can't climb it, yet so clean they can't accuse you of building it out of malice. When you understand their psychology, you take away their advantage. You begin to see their patterns, the subtle digs, the sudden guilt trips, the way they shift blame when cornered. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You stop reacting in the way they expect. You pause when they want you flustered. You smile when they want you angry. You hold your ground when they want you to bend. And little by little, they start to feel it, the loss of control. This is where the real fear sets in for them. Not fear of you as a person, but fear of losing their grip on you. They begin to realize you're no longer their easy target. They sense that you've stepped out of their game entirely, and it unnerves them more than any confrontation ever could. By the end of this journey, you'll know exactly how to stand in that power without letting bitterness touch you. You'll discover how to make toxic people back away, not because you've matched their darkness, but because you've outgrown it. Stay with me, because once you learn this, you will never look at them or yourself the same way again. Do you want me to go ahead and write section 2 in the same style next? Toxic people operate on a simple truth. They only respect what they cannot control. When your reactions are predictable, when your emotions are easy to provoke, you become a script they've memorized. They know exactly which words will cut you, which silences will make you squirm, and which accusations will force you to defend yourself. They aren't looking for fairness or understanding. They're looking for the upper hand. And the more you try to reason with them from a place of vulnerability, the more they tighten their grasp. To change this, you must learn the art of becoming unshakable. That means no longer giving them the emotional currency they survive on. Your calm becomes their discomfort. Your stillness becomes their frustration. When they expect an outburst and receive only a steady, grounded response, it throws their entire strategy into chaos. They depend on your reactions to feel powerful. Remove those reactions and you remove the fuel that drives their behavior. This is not suppression. This is not pretending you don't feel anger, sadness, or disappointment. It's the choice to channel those emotions into control instead of chaos. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand in the storm and remain centered, knowing that the wind can howl, but it cannot move you. In that moment, you stop being someone they can play with, and you start being someone they must tread carefully around. The shift is subtle at first. They may push harder, test your limits more aggressively, or try to bait you into old patterns. But each time you refuse to engage on their terms, you chip away at the illusion of their dominance. They begin to see that their usual tactics, guilt, anger, manipulation, have no home in you anymore. What once worked effortlessly now falls flat. And that's when fear begins to creep in for them. This fear is not the kind that drives them to attack harder. It's the quiet, sinking realization that they can no longer predict you, no longer steer you, no longer draw you into their chaos. It's the awareness that they are losing access to the control they once had. And for toxic people, that loss is devastating. By mastering this level of control, you don't just protect yourself from them, you elevate yourself beyond their reach. You stop living as someone who constantly defends and start living as someone who chooses. You make every word, every silence, every decision an act of power. That's when you're no longer merely surviving them, you're dismantling the very foundation of their control. And in their eyes, that is the most intimidating thing you can ever become. Real power is not loud. It does not need to shout to be heard. It is the calm presence that fills a room without demanding attention, the steady voice that carries more weight than any scream. When dealing with toxic people, this kind of quiet authority is what unsettles them the most. They expect power to look like aggression, but when they meet strength that doesn't mirror their chaos, they are left without a strategy. You are no longer reacting in the way they can exploit. You are operating on a level they cannot reach. This begins with self-command. Every time you choose not to meet their hostility with your own, you are training your mind to lead instead of follow. You are teaching yourself that your emotions belong to you, not to anyone else. Toxic people thrive when they can pull your strings, but when those strings are cut, their influence withers. They may try to provoke, they may search for a crack in your resolve, but each time you remain steady, their grasp loosens. Calm authority is not weakness, it is the strongest position you can hold. It sends the message that you are in control of yourself, and therefore, they have no control over you. This message, delivered consistently through your actions, becomes a language they understand. And in that language, you are telling them, you cannot win here. It is not about making them afraid of you as a person, but afraid of wasting their energy on someone who will never bend to their will. This is why aggression fails. It may feel powerful in the moment, but it plays directly into their narrative. They want you to lose control, to prove that you are just as unstable as they are. When you stay composed, you deny them the evidence they crave. You show them that their chaos cannot pull you down into the same level of pettiness and volatility. That realization is more threatening to them than any display of anger. Over time, they will begin to adjust. Some will retreat entirely, realizing there is nothing left for them to take. Others may attempt to maintain surface-level contact but will tread lightly, careful not to trigger the unshakable wall you built. You've shifted the balance without ever becoming what you despise. And in that shift, you gain something more valuable than their fear. You gain your freedom. This is the essence of power without poison. It is the ability to make them respect the limits you've set, not because you forced them to, but because you gave them no other option. And once you understand that you can command this kind of respect without losing your integrity, you stop fearing their presence entirely. Instead, you start living with the kind of strength they cannot touch. Silence is one of the most unsettling forces you can use against someone who thrives on chaos. Toxic people depend on reaction. They measure their control by how quickly and how strongly you respond. When your words dry up and your face gives nothing away, you create a space they cannot enter. That space is power. It forces them to sit with their own discomfort, to face the echo of their manipulation without the distraction of your defense. It removes their favorite weapon, your energy. Silence is not avoidance. It is an active choice, a deliberate act of holding your ground without granting them the satisfaction of knowing what you think or feel. It tells them, without words, that they no longer dictate the pace of the interaction. The more you can master the pause, that brief, controlled moment before you speak, the more you unsettle them. They expect you to rush to explain yourself, to argue, to justify. When you don't, they lose their sense of dominance. This kind of restraint takes discipline. It requires resisting the urge to fill the air when it becomes tense. It demands that you remain comfortable in moments when they are visibly uncomfortable. But with practice, you'll find that silence becomes a shield, and behind that shield you gain clarity. You see their tactics for what they are. You notice the patterns they use to try to provoke you. And the more you see, the easier it becomes to choose stillness over reaction. Every time you refuse to answer a manipulative question immediately, you send a message that you cannot be rushed into surrendering control. Every time you let their insult hang in the air without feeding it, you remind them that their words no longer cut as deeply as they once did. The quiet makes them wonder what you're thinking, whether they've lost their grip entirely, and that uncertainty is something they cannot tolerate for long. Silence also protects your dignity. Words spoken in anger or frustration can be twisted, replayed, and used against you. But when you hold your tongue, you deny them any material to weaponize. You force the weight of the moment to rest entirely on their shoulders. It is no longer you defending yourself against their narrative. It is them scrambling to fill the space you've created. Over time, this practice becomes second nature. You stop feeling the urge to defend every accusation or justify every decision. You understand that the truth doesn't need your constant defense to remain true. And in that understanding, you find freedom. The less they know about what moves you, the less they can use against you. The less they can predict you, the more they are forced to respect you. And respect, earned through silence and composure, is the kind of power that cannot be taken away. Boundaries are not walls meant to shut the world out. They are gates that you control, opening and closing with purpose. Toxic people hate boundaries because they strip away their ability to invade without permission. Every time you set a clear limit, you take away a piece of their power. And when you hold that limit firmly without apology or hesitation, you communicate a truth they cannot ignore, that you are not available for manipulation. A boundary is not something you announce once and forget. It is something you enforce consistently, no matter how small the challenge may seem. The moment you allow an exception for their behavior, they see it as an opening. They don't see your kindness in that moment. They see your weakness. That is why consistency is everything. If you say no, it must mean no every time. If you decide you will not engage with certain behavior, you must follow through without fail. Boundaries are not built on emotion, they are built on principle. When you make decisions based on how you feel in the moment, you leave room for persuasion, guilt, or pressure to wear you down. But when your boundaries are rooted in your values, they become immovable. You no longer debate with yourself about whether to enforce them. You simply do, because they represent who you are and what you stand for. Toxic people will test these limits. They will pretend not to hear them, or they will try to negotiate around them. Some will even disguise their challenges as concern or humor, hoping you will drop your guard. But when you meet each attempt with the same steady response, they eventually realize there is no point in pushing further. They are faced with the reality that the version of you they could manipulate no longer exists. The power of boundaries is not only in keeping toxic people at a distance, it is in how they reshape the way you see yourself. Every time you enforce one, you affirm your worth. You remind yourself that your peace, your time, and your energy are valuable. You start making decisions not out of fear of conflict, but out of respect for yourself. And that respect becomes visible to everyone around you. The more you live with firm boundaries, the less effort it takes to maintain them. People begin to sense where your lines are drawn without you having to explain them. Toxic individuals either adapt or remove themselves entirely because they understand they can no longer operate freely in your presence. And that is when you realize the truth. The real strength of a boundary is not in keeping others out, but in keeping yourself firmly grounded in who you are, no matter who tries to pull you away from it. Toxic people feed on emotional transparency. The more they can read you, the easier it is for them to anticipate your next move and plan their attack. When every feeling you have is visible on your face or in your voice, they know exactly when their tactics are working. But when you learn to control what you reveal, when you keep your emotions measured and deliberate, you remove one of their sharpest tools. You stop giving them the blueprint to your reactions, and that forces them into uncertainty. Becoming emotionally unreadable is not about becoming cold or unfeeling. It is about mastering the ability to choose when and how you express yourself. It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Toxic individuals do not see your vulnerability as a chance to connect. They see it as leverage. When you stop handing them that leverage, you change the dynamic entirely. They cannot provoke what they cannot see. This skill begins with self-awareness. You must know what triggers you before you can control how you respond. Notice the physical signs, the tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the clenching of your jaw, and practice releasing them before they take over your expression. The calmer your body, the calmer your mind. The calmer your mind, the less power they have over you. In moments when you feel the urge to react, give yourself a pause. A single deep breath can be the difference between exposing yourself and keeping your power intact. Use that space to decide whether showing your feelings will serve you or serve them. Often you will find that withholding your reaction is the stronger choice. Not because you are hiding, but because you are protecting your energy from being used against you. Over time, this control becomes second nature. You will notice that situations that once triggered immediate frustration or hurt now feel different. You no longer feel compelled to prove a point or justify your emotions in the heat of the moment. You become comfortable with keeping certain truths to yourself, revealing them only when it aligns with your intentions. This is not detachment from life. It is detachment from manipulation. Toxic people are unsettled by those they cannot read. It forces them to question their influence, to wonder if they ever truly understood you at all, and that uncertainty weakens them far more than any verbal confrontation ever could. By making your emotional world a place they cannot easily enter, you protect your peace without having to fight for it. You become untouchable, not because you've built walls of stone, but because you've mastered the art of showing only what serves your strength. That mastery is a language they cannot speak, and it is in that silence that your power becomes undeniable. Confidence is the language that toxic people cannot argue with. It is the energy that tells the world you are not here to be diminished, manipulated, or controlled. Confidence does not beg for approval, and it does not seek validation from the very people who aim to undermine it. It stands tall without demanding recognition, and that quiet certainty is what makes those who prey on weakness feel powerless. They cannot operate in the presence of someone who truly knows their worth. True confidence begins with the way you carry yourself. Before you speak a word, your posture, your gaze, and your movements already send a message. When you stand with your shoulders back, your head held high, and your presence steady, you communicate self-respect without opening your mouth. Toxic people are highly attuned to body language. They notice the slightest signs of uncertainty, slouched shoulders, fidgeting hands, a downward glance, and use them as cues to push harder. When your body reflects confidence, you deny them that opening. Your voice is just as important. Speaking slowly, clearly, and with a measured tone makes it clear that you are not rushing to please or afraid to be heard. Toxic individuals often dominate conversations by forcing a fast pace or interrupting, hoping to throw you off balance. When you maintain your rhythm, refusing to match their urgency, you keep control. Every deliberate word becomes an anchor, grounding the interaction in your authority rather than their chaos. Confidence also lives in the choices you make. It is seen in your willingness to stand by your decisions without over-explaining. When you decline something, you do so without guilt. When you say yes, it is because you mean it, not because you were pressured into compliance. This decisiveness sends a clear message that your boundaries are not up for negotiation. For a toxic person, that decisiveness is a threat to their influence. Building this kind of confidence is not about perfection or arrogance. It is about aligning your actions with your self-respect, even when it feels uncomfortable. It is about practicing the behaviors of a confident person until they become part of who you are. Each time you carry yourself with assurance, you reinforce to both yourself and others that you are not an easy target. The more consistently you embody this energy, the less room toxic people have to operate around you. They will feel the shift, the solid presence that does not bend to pressure, the unwavering tone that does not rise to provocation. This quiet, steady power will make them think twice before challenging you. Not because you've threatened them, but because they instinctively know you are not someone they can control. And when that realization takes root, their fear is not of you as a person, but of the undeniable truth that you can stand without them, and they can do nothing to change it. One of the most effective ways to unsettle a toxic person is to hold up a mirror to their behavior. Not a literal mirror, but a reflection of their own words, tone, and tactics, shown back to them in a calm, controlled way. They operate under the belief that their actions go unnoticed or unchallenged. But when you subtly reflect their energy back, it disrupts their rhythm. They begin to feel exposed, as if you've stripped away the mask they hide behind. This is not about mocking or escalating. It is about allowing them to hear and see their own behavior in a way they cannot easily dismiss. When someone tries to twist your words, repeat them back exactly as they were said, without adding emotion or commentary. When they attempt to dominate a conversation, match their pace for a moment, and then return to your calm tone, signaling that you are aware of their push but not affected by it. When they use sarcasm or subtle insults, acknowledge them with a neutral expression, making it clear you caught it without giving them the emotional reaction they hoped for. These small adjustments shift the power dynamic in your favor without crossing into aggression. This technique works because it creates discomfort without hostility. Toxic people thrive in an environment where they feel hidden in plain sight, free to manipulate without confrontation. But mirroring their behavior, even in a measured way, forces them to see themselves as others might. It denies them the comfort of thinking their tactics are invisible. That discomfort can be more powerful than any direct confrontation. The key is subtlety. If you come across as confrontational, they will deflect, accuse, or escalate to regain control. But when your approach is calm, controlled, and almost surgical, they are left with no easy defense. They may not admit it, but they will think twice about using the same tactic again with you. You have disrupted the pattern they rely on, and patterns are the lifeblood of manipulation. With practice, you will learn to use mirroring selectively and strategically. You don't need to respond to every provocation this way. In fact, using it sparingly makes it even more effective. It becomes a reminder to them that you see more than you reveal, that you are not as easy to mislead as they once thought. Over time, they will approach interactions with you more cautiously, aware that their usual methods may be turned back on them. This is quiet power in action. You are not raising your voice. You are not lowering yourself to their level, and you are not abandoning your integrity. You are simply making it clear that you are aware, present, and unwilling to be a passive participant in their games. And awareness, when combined with composure, is something toxic people fear deeply, because they cannot control what they can no longer deceive. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools of strength. When used with intention, it carries more weight than the loudest argument. A toxic person thrives on reactions because reactions are proof that they have influence over you. The moment you respond with silence, their grip begins to loosen. They are left to sit with their own words, their own energy, without the validation they crave. This is not the silence of avoidance or fear, but the silence of control. A silence that says you decide when and how engagement happens. It is a discipline to hold back words when you know you could dismantle their argument with precision. It is a discipline to refrain from defending yourself when you know their accusations are built on lies. This restraint is not weakness, it is power in its most concentrated form. Every second you hold your silence, you remind yourself that you do not have to meet someone at the level they are trying to pull you down to. You preserve your dignity, you protect your energy, and you maintain control of the moment. Silence forces the other person to deal with the discomfort they were trying to transfer onto you. When they can't provoke a reaction, they are left to feel the weight of their own behavior. Many will try harder to break through your composure, raising their voice, pressing harder, or resorting to insults. That is when you know your silence is working. The more they push, the more you withdraw your emotional investment. You stand firm in the knowledge that your peace is not up for negotiation. This form of silence is not passive. It is an active choice to disengage from what does not serve you. It is the refusal to be a participant in their chaos. It is the understanding that some battles are not worth fighting because they are designed to drain you, not to resolve anything. When you remain silent with purpose, you are sending a clear message. You cannot be baited, you cannot be manipulated, and you cannot be drawn into a game that has no winner. Over time, people learn that your attention must be earned, not demanded. They realize that your energy is not an open resource they can tap into at will. And for those who thrive on conflict, this becomes a deterrent. They will either adjust the way they interact with you or remove themselves entirely. Both outcomes protect your well-being. Your silence is not empty. It is full of the self-respect that comes from knowing you are not obligated to respond to everything thrown your way. It is filled with the strength of someone who chooses their battles wisely. And it is backed by the unshakable truth that the loudest voice in the room is not always the most powerful. Sometimes, the quietest one commands the greatest respect. The ability to remain calm under pressure is a weapon few possess, yet it changes the outcome of almost every confrontation. When your mind stays steady, you see what others miss. You catch the patterns in someone's words, the cracks in their logic, the truth beneath their anger. You are no longer reacting to the surface. You are reading the deeper currents that drive their behavior. Calmness gives you clarity, and clarity gives you control. Without it, you are pulled into their emotional storm, forced to fight battles you never needed to fight. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. You still feel the pull of frustration, the sting of disrespect, the heat of anger, but you do not let those feelings dictate your next move. Instead, you let them pass through you without giving them the power to steer your decisions. In that space between feeling and acting, you find freedom. You choose to respond in ways that serve you rather than harm you. You stop letting others write the script for how you should feel or what you should do. When you are calm, your words carry more weight because they are deliberate, not desperate. People listen differently when they know you are not speaking from a place of chaos. Your composure forces them to confront their own loss of control. It exposes the instability of their position without you having to raise your voice or prove your point through force. The quieter you remain, the more their noise feels out of place, and the more obvious it becomes who truly holds power in the exchange. Staying calm does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means refusing to let disrespect dictate your state of mind. You can walk away without feeling defeated. You can set boundaries without feeling guilty. You can protect yourself without letting anger poison your spirit. Every moment you maintain your composure, you are reclaiming the space within you that no one else has the right to occupy. You are choosing peace without surrendering strength. Calmness is a discipline that is built through repeated choices. Each time you resist the urge to react impulsively, you strengthen your ability to rise above provocation. You start to notice that the people who once had the power to trigger you lose their influence. Their attempts fall flat because you are no longer playing the same game. And with each instance, your self-respect grows. There is a deep power in knowing you can stand in the middle of chaos and remain untouched by it, that no matter how loud the world becomes, you will not let it dictate the rhythm of your heartbeat, that you can choose silence without weakness, calmness without indifference, and walk away with your dignity intact every single time. True strength is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in the way you hold yourself when everything around you demands that you lose control. The temptation to react, to prove yourself, to match the chaos with chaos will always be there. But it is in those moments that restraint becomes a declaration of power. When you refuse to be dragged into emotional warfare, you are sending a clear message. You are unshakable, and nothing outside of you has the authority to dictate your state of being. Composure is not passivity. It is the conscious decision to conserve your energy for actions that matter. Every reaction you withhold is energy you keep for building the life you want. When you stop scattering your power across meaningless conflicts, you become unstoppable in the battles that truly deserve your attention. You begin to see that not every insult needs an answer, not every challenge needs your engagement, and not every situation is worth the cost of your peace. To remain calm is to understand the difference between urgency and importance. The world will try to convince you that every slight, every disagreement, every rumor is urgent, that it must be addressed immediately. But calmness allows you to step back, assess, and decide whether it even matters in the long run. Most of the noise demanding your attention is nothing more than a distraction designed to pull you from your purpose. The more you practice filtering out what is irrelevant, the sharper your focus becomes on what will truly move your life forward. Calmness also transforms how others perceive you. People instinctively respect the one who cannot be provoked, the one who stands tall without raising their voice. Your composure makes you unpredictable in the best way possible, because no one can manipulate what they cannot move. They will either adjust their approach or remove themselves from your presence entirely, because they recognize they have no leverage over you. This is the quiet dominance that does not need to be announced. It simply exists. Every time you hold your calm, you are not just protecting yourself in that moment, you are rewiring your mind for resilience. You are training your nervous system to respond from a place of stability rather than fear. You are building an internal environment so strong that the storms outside can rage without breaking through. Over time, what once triggered you will feel insignificant because you will have outgrown it. When you master this state, you stop living as a reaction to the world and start living as the architect of it. Your peace becomes untouchable. Your focus becomes laser sharp, and your life begins to align with the strength you carry within. A strength that no one can take because it does not depend on them. It is yours, and it always will be. When you realize that your mind is the command center of your reality, you begin to understand why control over it is the greatest power you can possess. Every thought you allow, every belief you hold, and every emotion you feed is shaping the direction of your life. If your mind is ruled by impulse, by fear, by the need for constant validation, you will always find yourself at the mercy of external forces. But if your mind is disciplined, if it obeys your higher vision instead of your lower urges, then you become a force that cannot be swayed. Discipline in thought is the birthplace of unshakable confidence. It is the quiet assurance that you will not collapse under pressure, because you have trained yourself to remain steady in both victory and defeat. It is refusing to let temporary discomfort blind you to your long-term purpose. It is holding the line when your emotions scream for you to abandon the mission. That is the strength that separates those who drift from those who dominate. Self-mastery requires that you stop feeding the distractions that dilute your potential. Every minute wasted on resentment, gossip, or comparison is energy stolen from the future you are capable of building. You cannot pour yourself into greatness if you keep spilling your focus into things that drain you. The truth is, not everything deserves your attention, and not everyone deserves your response. Your mind is prime territory, and it should only be occupied by thoughts that fuel your growth, sharpen your perspective, and strengthen your resolve. When you choose your thoughts with precision, you also choose your emotional state with intention. You stop being a hostage to moods and circumstances because you understand that emotions are not commands, they are signals. You can feel them without obeying them. You can acknowledge them without being consumed by them. And in doing so, you build a level of control that most people never reach. This is not the absence of feeling, it is the ability to lead your feelings instead of being led by them. The more you practice this, the more you notice a profound shift. Stress no longer shakes you the way it used to. Pressure becomes a trigger for focus rather than panic. Criticism loses its power to wound you because you measure yourself against your own standard, not the fleeting opinions of others. You begin to operate from a place of clarity, where decisions are no longer clouded by insecurity or fear. This is the mental territory where breakthroughs happen. This is where you stop chasing stability and start creating it. The outside world can remain chaotic, unpredictable, even hostile, but it no longer defines you. You define you. You decide what enters your mind, what shapes your energy, and what directs your life. And when you live from that place of control, the world has no choice but to respond to your strength. Strength is not found in how loudly you speak or how aggressively you move, but in the unwavering control you have over yourself when the world tests you. True power is the ability to act with precision when others act out of impulse. It is the choice to respond instead of react, to lead with clarity instead of being dragged by chaos. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can control the space between what happens and what you decide to do about it. That space is where your freedom lives. That space is where your greatness is built. The mind that can remain steady under pressure becomes a weapon no challenge can dismantle. This steadiness does not come from avoiding adversity. It comes from facing it until fear loses its hold on you. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, patience over panic, focus over frustration, you carve a deeper foundation for the kind of resilience that cannot be faked. And the more you strengthen this foundation, the less the outside world can shake it. Your energy is too valuable to be scattered in battles that do not matter. Not every insult deserves an answer, and not every conflict is worth your presence. Walking away is not weakness. It is a deliberate act of power when you know your attention is better spent on building what matters. You must learn to protect your inner world the way a fortress protects its most precious treasure. The moment you let just anything in, you allow chaos to plant seeds that will grow into distractions and doubts. Guard it fiercely. Self-control is not a prison, it is the highest form of freedom. When you no longer obey every impulse, you free yourself from the chains of your lower nature. You become the architect of your actions, not a victim of your urges. This control creates a kind of quiet confidence that does not need to be announced because it is evident in the way you move, speak, and decide. People will notice the calm in your eyes, the steadiness in your tone, the unshakable presence you carry, and they will know they are standing before someone who is not easily moved. This level of strength is rare, and because it is rare, it commands respect without demanding it. You stop chasing approval because you realize that approval from others is nothing compared to respect for yourself. And when you respect yourself, you stop lowering your standards just to be accepted. You begin to move with a different energy, an energy that naturally attracts opportunities, connections, and outcomes that align with your highest vision. Nothing outside of you can match the power of what you cultivate inside of you. When the mind is disciplined, the emotions are steady, and the vision is clear, the world bends to your direction. That is the point where life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. When you train yourself to operate from a place of inner stability, you stop being controlled by the noise of the world. You begin to see clearly where others are blinded by their own emotions. Clarity is not just knowing what you want, but knowing what you will no longer tolerate. It is the deep understanding that not everything deserves your attention, and not every voice deserves space in your mind. You rise above the pull of petty conflicts and small distractions because your vision has no room for anything less than what pushes you forward. The mind that is focused becomes a force that bends reality toward its will. This is why you must learn to direct your thoughts with intention, because every thought you allow to take root becomes the seed of your future. Let your mind dwell on growth, on possibilities, on disciplined action, and it will create a reality that reflects those same qualities. Let it wander into doubt, resentment, or fear, and you will find those things mirrored back into your life. Your inner state is not separate from your external world. It is the blueprint for it. Every moment you choose strength over weakness, you strengthen the connection between who you are and who you are meant to be. Each decision becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. And if you want to live as the highest version of yourself, you must stop negotiating with the habits, people, and environments that pull you back to a lower level. Nothing changes until you decide that your future matters more than your comfort. Comfort will keep you in circles. Discipline will take you to heights you've never imagined. It is in the silence of self-control that true transformation happens. The world might see stillness, but within that stillness there is an intensity that shapes destinies. You begin to trust yourself more, because you see yourself choosing what is hard over what is easy, what is right over what is quick. And when you can trust yourself, you move without hesitation. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you realize you are the one who creates it. Power is not about dominating others. It is about mastering yourself to such a degree that no circumstance can dictate your worth, your path, or your identity. This mastery makes you unshakable because you are no longer built on the fragile foundation of external validation. You stand on the solid ground of your own commitment, your own discipline, your own relentless pursuit of what matters. When you live this way, you carry a presence that cannot be ignored. It is not loud, but it is undeniable. People may not understand it, but they will feel it. And deep down, you will know it comes from one thing: choosing every single day to be greater than your excuses and stronger than your fears. Strength is built in the moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. It is in the battles no one sees, the private wars fought in the silence of your own mind, where resilience is forged. Every time you refuse to break, you are not just surviving, you are rewiring yourself to become someone who cannot be shaken. This is why you must see resistance not as an obstacle, but as the very training ground for the life you want. Without it, your character remains untested, your potential untouched. Discipline is not about forcing yourself into a life of restriction. It is about granting yourself the freedom that only control can give. When you own your impulses, your time, and your choices, you step into a power that few ever taste. The undisciplined live as servants to their moods, pulled in every direction by whatever feels good in the moment. But the disciplined carve a path through the noise, driven by the quiet certainty that every sacrifice is an investment in something greater. And when those investments begin to compound, the results are undeniable. The world will try to convince you that you need more approval, more comfort, more shortcuts. But those things do not build a soul strong enough to withstand storms. If you give in to them, you will feel temporary ease, but it will cost you permanent strength. Choose instead to carry the weight that others avoid. Choose the harder road because it will shape you into someone who cannot be replaced. Ease is the enemy of greatness. The fire you walk through willingly is what will make you untouchable. There will be moments when doubt will whisper that you are not ready, not capable, not enough. You must learn to answer that voice with action. Action is the language the mind cannot ignore. When you move despite fear, you train your brain to understand that fear has no power here. And over time, those steps taken in defiance of doubt will become your new foundation. You will no longer wait for confidence. You will create it. Your future is shaped in the present, and the present is shaped by what you decide to tolerate. If you accept mediocrity, you will live in it. If you demand more of yourself, even when no one is watching, you will rise into a life that others cannot touch. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is the daily choice to honor the person you are becoming. Every day you are either feeding the part of you that wants comfort or the part of you that wants greatness. One will win and the other will fade. Decide now which one you will keep alive, because the life you build will always be the direct reflection of the strength you choose to keep. The life you dream of will never be handed to you. It must be claimed with relentless effort and unwavering conviction. Every goal you have exists beyond a wall of resistance, and the only way through is to meet that resistance head-on. Comfort will beg you to stay, fear will try to hold you back, and doubt will attempt to chain you to who you used to be. But you are not here to live small. You are here to expand, to rise, to prove to yourself that you can endure the pressure required to transform into someone extraordinary. Growth demands that you shed the version of yourself that is afraid to be uncomfortable. You cannot hold on to your excuses and your potential at the same time. The moment you choose progress over perfection, effort over ease, you begin to unlock a power you never knew you had. It is not about waiting for the right time or the perfect conditions. It is about moving forward with what you have, where you are, and trusting that the strength you need will meet you on the path. Every day offers you the choice between becoming stronger or remaining the same. Strength is not built in rare, grand moments. It is built in the ordinary decisions that seem small but shape everything. It is in getting up when you feel tired, pushing forward when your mind tells you to stop, and refusing to lower your standards when no one is holding you accountable. These decisions compound into a life that others call impossible, but you will know it was nothing more than the result of showing up for yourself every single day. The mind will try to convince you that you should wait until you feel ready, but readiness is a myth. Action is the cure for hesitation. The moment you take that first step, you create momentum, and momentum creates transformation. Confidence does not come before action. It is built because of action. Every time you push yourself beyond what you thought you could handle, you redefine your limits. And in that process, you discover that your limits were never real to begin with. Your habits are the architects of your future. What you do consistently will either construct a foundation strong enough to support your biggest dreams or quietly erode the possibility of achieving them. If you feed your distractions, you will starve your ambitions. If you feed your focus, you will watch your reality align with the vision you carry in your heart. You have far more control than you realize, but only if you are willing to stop negotiating with the parts of you that want to stay safe. Everything you want is on the other side of discipline, persistence, and self-belief. The question is not whether it is possible. The question is whether you will choose to pay the price every single day until it is yours. Discipline is not punishment, it is the highest form of self-respect. It is the act of telling yourself that your future matters more than your impulses, that your goals are worth more than your comfort, and that your vision is non-negotiable. Every time you choose to honor your commitments over your cravings, you strengthen the foundation of the person you are becoming. That foundation will hold you when life shakes you, because storms will come, and they will test every fiber of your being. But when you have built yourself on consistency, you will not crumble. The path to mastery is not crowded because most people quit when the results do not come fast enough. They confuse slow progress with no progress, forgetting that greatness is built in layers, one deliberate action at a time. You cannot rush transformation. You can only show up every day and do the work, even when the reward is invisible. Trust that the invisible seasons are the most important ones. They are where resilience is forged, where your character is carved, and where you prove to yourself that your commitment is stronger than your circumstances. Every obstacle you face is an invitation to rise above who you were yesterday. When life pushes against you, it is not to stop you, but to strengthen you. Resistance is proof that you are moving forward. The moment you start viewing challenges as opportunities to sharpen your strength, you stop fearing them. You begin to meet them with determination instead of hesitation, with focus instead of frustration. You stop asking, why me? And start saying, try me. That shift changes everything. You must refuse to negotiate with your excuses. They will sound reasonable, they will feel justified, and they will always appear at the exact moment you are capable of breaking through to your next level. Excuses are the whispers of the weaker self that does not want to let go of comfort. You silence them by acting in spite of them, by moving forward even when you feel unprepared, and by refusing to wait for motivation to carry you. Motivation fades. Discipline remains. Every sacrifice you make is a seed planted in the soil of your future. You may not see the harvest today, but the roots are growing beneath the surface. Stay patient, stay faithful to the process, and never mistake a silent season for a wasted one. The greatest victories are prepared in the moments when no one is watching, when it is just you, your vision, and the choice to keep going. Your future self is waiting for you to show up today with the same intensity as the day you first dreamed of becoming more. Do not let them down. The only way to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be is to decide every single day that nothing will stop you.